The 1970s were a turbulent decade for the American automotive industry. A combination of rising fuel costs, stricter emissions regulations, and misguided designs led to the production of some truly questionable cars. Here's a look at 10 of the stupidest and worst cars that came out of America in the 1970s.
Dear viewer, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your support.
Number 10. The 1974 Ford Mustang II. King Cobra is often considered a low point in the Mustang's history, despite its efforts to revive the muscle car image. The King Cobra variant of the Mustang II was equipped with a 5.0-liter V8, which, while it sounded impressive, only produced 140 horsepower. This was a significant drop compared to the Mustang's earlier muscle car versions, which were known for their high-powered engines. The 1970s were a challenging time for performance cars due to tightening emissions, regulations, fuel economy concerns, and the oil crisis. These factors led to the detuning of engines, which severely impacted performance across the automotive industry, including the Mustang II. The King Cobra was more about appearances than actual performance. It featured flashy graphics, a scooped hood, fender flares, and even a snake decal on the hood. But these changes were largely cosmetic. It lacked the mechanical upgrades or performance enhancements that would have justified its King Cobra name. Muscle car enthusiasts were looking for power and performance, but the King Cobra offered little beyond its aggressive look. Without the driving dynamics to match its exterior styling, it felt like a muscle car in name only. The Mustang II, introduced in 1974, was based on a much smaller platform than the original Mustang. This downsizing made it more compact and less imposing, which was a stark departure from the muscle car identity the Mustang had built in the 1960s. While the King Cobra attempted to bring some of that muscle car styling back with bold graphics and sporty design elements, the underlying shape and proportions of the Mustang II were still less muscular and aggressive compared to earlier Mustang models. The King Cobra was launched in the mid-1970s, a time when the American car market was still reeling from the oil crisis. The demand for high-performance muscle cars was in decline, and buyers were more interested in fuel efficiency than raw power. The Mustang II was designed more as a compact, economical car to align with the changing market trends of the time. Trying to shoehorn a muscle car persona into a car built for economy didn't resonate with either the performance crowd or those looking for a practical car. Critics and enthusiasts alike viewed the Mustang II King Cobra as a shadow of what the Mustang had once been. The lack of true performance made it feel like a missed opportunity to revive the Mustang's muscle car legacy. While the Mustang II King Cobra was an attempt to keep the Mustang relevant during a difficult period, it was overshadowed by competitors that were either more powerful or better suited to the era's demands. The Mustang II generation, and particularly the King Cobra, is often seen as a low point in the Mustang's history. While the model helped the Mustang survive during a challenging time, it tarnished the brand's image as a performance car. The Mustang II's poor performance in the eyes of enthusiasts set the stage for Ford to rethink its approach, leading to the revitalization of the Mustang in the 1980s with the introduction of the Fox body platform, which brought back more of the performance and appeal that had originally made the Mustang iconic. The 1974 Ford Mustang II King Cobra was an attempt to bring muscle car flair back to the Mustang lineup, but it ultimately failed due to its underpowered engine, reliance on cosmetic changes, and poor timing amid an oil crisis and shifting market trends. While it had the look of a muscle car, its lack of substance left enthusiasts disappointed, making it a low point in the Mustang's storied history. Number 9, the 1975 Buick Skyhawk was a compact car introduced as part of Buick's lineup to compete in the growing small car segment during the 1970s. However, it failed to impress for several reasons. The Skyhawk was equipped with a 3.8-liter V6 engine, producing about 110 horsepower. While this might have been adequate for a compact car, it lacked the punch to deliver any real excitement, especially when compared to sportier options available at the time. The Skyhawk's performance was sluggish, with slow acceleration and little torque, leaving drivers underwhelmed when it came to delivering on the promise of a sporty, fun-to-drive car. Despite being a smaller car, The Skyhawk used a rear-wheel drive layout, which didn't match well with its compact design. This contributed to handling issues, especially in poor weather conditions like rain or snow. The car's suspension system wasn't optimized for tight handling or a smooth ride, making the Skyhawk feel disconnected from the road. Its driving dynamics were a far cry from what drivers expected from a compact, sporty car. The Skyhawk's design was uninspired, with a boxy shape and plain, featureless body lines that didn't stand out in a decade known for bold, expressive car designs. Its look didn't convey any sense of sportiness, despite Buick's marketing efforts to present it as such. The Skyhawk was a rebadged version of the Chevrolet Monza and shared a platform with other GM cars, which made it less distinctive. Buick didn't do enough to differentiate the Skyhawk from its corporate siblings, leading to its quick overshadowing by more exciting models. Although smaller in size, the Skyhawk didn't deliver great fuel economy. During the 1970s, fuel efficiency was a major concern due to the ongoing oil crisis, and the Skyhawk didn't offer enough of a savings advantage to make up for its other shortcomings. The Skyhawk was easily overshadowed by other Buick models that were more luxurious or better performing, such as the Buick Regal or LeSabre, which had stronger followings and offered more value for the price. In the small car segment, the Skyhawk faced stiff competition from brands like Toyota, Honda, and even other domestic rivals like Ford, whose compact cars were either more fuel efficient or better built. The Skyhawk simply didn't stand out. Despite Buick's attempt to market the Skyhawk as a sporty, fun car, it didn't appeal to driving enthusiasts who craved more power and better handling. The Skyhawk struggled to find its place in Buick's lineup. It was too small and underpowered to be considered a true luxury car, yet not sporty enough to compete with muscle or performance-oriented vehicles, leaving it in an awkward middle ground. The Skyhawk never gained much traction in the market, and it quickly became an afterthought in Buick's history. It was produced through the early 1980s, but with little fanfare or demand. The Skyhawk offered nothing groundbreaking, either in terms of technology or design, and it quickly became forgotten as more innovative and exciting cars were introduced by competitors. The 1975 Buick Skyhawk was a small, underpowered car with poor handling and lackluster design. It failed to provide the excitement or performance that buyers expected, and it was quickly overshadowed by other, more successful models in Buick's lineup. Its lack of identity, combined with mediocre fuel efficiency and uninspiring styling, sealed its fate as one of the more forgettable cars of the 1970s. Number 8. The 1971 Chevrolet Caprice was a full-size car that represented the epitome of the large American sedan, but it was plagued by several significant issues that made it poorly suited for the changing automotive landscape of the 1970s. The 1971 Caprice was huge, with a wheelbase of 121.5 inches and a weight well over 4,000 pounds. This massive size made it difficult to maneuver, park, and drive in tighter urban settings. It felt cumbersome and sluggish compared to smaller, more agile vehicles that were gaining popularity. Its size and weight contributed to poor handling and a generally unwieldy driving experience. The Caprice felt heavy and slow to respond, especially in cornering and braking, which detracted from any semblance of driving enjoyment. The Caprice's large V8 engines, which included options like the 400 cubic inch and 454 cubic inch engines, were incredibly inefficient. With the 1970s oil crisis looming, buyers were becoming more concerned about fuel economy, and the Caprice's single-digit miles per gallon performance was a huge drawback. As the 1970s progressed, there was a growing demand for smaller, more fuel-efficient cars. The Caprice's massive fuel consumption made it feel increasingly outdated and impractical, particularly for budget-conscious buyers. The 1971 Caprice, like many cars of the era, was a victim of tightening emissions regulations, which led to reduced engine power. While earlier models had impressive V8 performance, by 1971, the engines were increasingly strangled by emissions controls. As a result, the Caprice was slow and lacked the muscle that some buyers expected from a large car with a big V8 engine. The car's excessive weight didn't help its performance. Despite its large engine options, The Caprice's bulk made acceleration sluggish and highway driving lethargic. This was a major disappointment for those who remembered the more powerful full-size Chevrolets of the 1960s. The 1971 Caprice had a very conservative, boxy design that was becoming dated even at the time of its release. While the car retained the long, sleek lines of earlier Caprice models, it lacked the flair or innovation to stand out. It felt more like a holdover from the 1960s, out of place in a decade that was beginning to embrace smaller, more modern car designs. The car was also lacking in terms of modern amenities or innovations. While some luxury features were available, the Caprice didn't offer anything groundbreaking in terms of technology or interior comfort, making it feel somewhat behind the times. The Caprice was known for its soft suspension and floaty ride, which made it feel disconnected from the road. While some buyers appreciated the smooth ride quality, it was at the expense of any real driving dynamics. The car leaned heavily in corners, and the lack of feedback made it feel cumbersome and less engaging to drive. The suspension setup also led to excessive body roll in turns, and the steering was slow and imprecise. This made the Caprice feel less stable and more difficult to control, especially in emergency maneuvers. While the Caprice was large and heavy, this didn't translate to superior safety. The car lacked the advanced safety features that would later become common, like airbags, side impact protection, or anti-lock brakes. The heavy, unwieldy nature of the car made it harder to stop or avoid accidents, which was a concern given its size and weight. As the 1970s progressed, consumer tastes were shifting towards smaller, more fuel-efficient cars. Models like the Chevrolet Nova or even the smaller Ford Maverick were gaining traction, while large gas-guzzling sedans like the Caprice were quickly falling out of favor. This change in the market left the Caprice feeling like a relic from a bygone era. The 1971 Chevrolet Caprice was an oversized, underpowered, and inefficient car that felt increasingly out of place in the 1970s. Its poor fuel economy, slow performance, and outdated styling made it a bad choice in a decade that was moving towards smaller, more economical vehicles. As consumer preferences shifted and the oil crisis loomed, the Caprice's flaws became more apparent, solidifying its reputation as a bloated, outdated relic of the past. Number 7. The 1977 AMC Hornet had a number of issues that made it a lackluster choice in the increasingly competitive compact car market. By the time the 1977 Hornet was released, its basic design was nearly a decade old, having first been introduced in 1970. While AMC made some updates over the years, the car's overall shape and styling remained largely unchanged, and it began to look dated next to sleeker, more modern compacts from competitors like Ford and Chevrolet. The Hornet's boxy, conservative styling failed to stand out. It lacked the visual appeal and innovation seen in other cars of the era, making it seem dull and unexciting compared to its rivals. The 1977 Hornet suffered from quality control issues, which led to frequent mechanical problems. Owners reported issues with the car's durability, and its overall build quality was seen as inferior to other cars in the same class. Like many AMC vehicles of the time, the Hornet was prone to rust, especially in areas where road salt was used during the winter. This contributed to its poor longevity and resale value, as rust could appear even on relatively new cars. While other automakers were introducing new technologies and features, the Hornet remained relatively stagnant. It didn't offer the modern amenities or innovations that buyers were beginning to expect, such as improved safety features, advanced engine technology, or fuel efficiency enhancements. The interior of the 1977 Hornet was simple and utilitarian, but it felt cheap and lacked refinement. Compared to the competition, it didn't offer the same level of comfort or convenience features, which was increasingly important for buyers in the compact car segment. The Hornet's available engines were not particularly powerful, and while AMC offered a V8 option, it was inefficient and added weight without significantly improving performance. The base engines were slow, and the car struggled with acceleration and overall driving dynamics. Even though the Hornet was a compact car, it didn't deliver the kind of fuel efficiency that many buyers were looking for in the late 1970s, especially during a time when fuel economy was becoming a top priority due to the oil crises of the previous years. By 1977, the Hornet was facing tough competition from cars like the Ford Pinto, Chevrolet Vega, and Toyota Corolla, which were more modern, better built, and offered superior reliability. AMC was a smaller automaker with fewer resources, and the Hornet simply couldn't keep up with the advancements being made by its competitors. The Hornet's handling and driving experience were unremarkable at best. It didn't offer the agility or smooth ride that other compacts provided, making it less enjoyable to drive. AMC as a company was struggling financially throughout the 1970s, and this had a direct impact on the quality of its vehicles. The Hornet, like other AMC models, suffered from a lack of investment in new technology and innovation. This led to a car that was essentially a product of AMC's slow decline, with fewer resources available for necessary improvements. The 1977 AMC Hornet was a dated, uninspired compact car that suffered from poor build quality, lackluster performance, and minimal innovation. Its bland design and outdated features made it unable to compete with more reliable and modern alternatives in the market, and it was ultimately overshadowed by better-built, more appealing compact cars from other manufacturers. AMC's financial struggles further compounded the Hornet's problems, leading to its reputation as a forgettable and subpar vehicle. Number 6. The 1970 Chrysler New Yorker, while marketed as a luxury vehicle, faced several significant drawbacks that made it a problematic car, especially during the oil crises of the 1970s. The 1970 New Yorker was a massive car, reflecting the American love for large vehicles at the time. However, by the early 70s, this focus on size began to feel out of step with changing consumer preferences, especially during the fuel crises. Its huge dimensions made it difficult to maneuver and park in increasingly crowded urban environments. The car's enormous size made it very heavy, which contributed to its poor handling and sluggish performance. The weight also placed extra stress on its components, leading to higher wear and tear over time. The New Yorker's size made it difficult to handle. It was known for being unwieldy, especially on tight city streets or when attempting sharp turns. The soft suspension made for a smooth ride on highways but resulted in poor cornering ability and body roll, leading to a less confident driving experience. Luxury was prioritized over driving dynamics, so the New Yorker felt more like a land yacht than a performance-oriented car. It was designed for cruising in a straight line rather than for precision or enjoyment in driving, which meant it lacked the agility that more modern luxury sedans were starting to offer. At a time when the world was moving toward more fuel-efficient cars, the New Yorker remained a gas-guzzling behemoth. With a large V8 engine under the hood, its fuel consumption was atrocious, making it expensive to run, especially as gas prices soared in the 1970s due to the oil crisis. The car's poor fuel efficiency made it out of touch with the changing needs of consumers. As the decade progressed, buyers were increasingly looking for smaller, more efficient vehicles, and the New Yorker was the opposite of that trend, hurting its sales and reputation. The 1970 New Yorker was also plagued by reliability issues, which affected both mechanical components and electrical systems. Owners reported frequent breakdowns and expensive repairs, making it a high-maintenance car that didn't live up to its luxury billing. Chrysler as a brand was struggling with quality control during this period, and the New Yorker was no exception. Components were often cheaply made or poorly assembled, leading to a reputation for unreliability and costly repairs. While Chrysler tried to position the New Yorker as a premium vehicle, its design and technology felt outdated even by 1970 standards. Other manufacturers were starting to introduce more modern features, both in terms of safety and convenience. But the New Yorker didn't offer much innovation. Although it was meant to compete with other luxury cars, the New Yorker didn't have the refinement of some of its competitors. Its interior, though spacious, wasn't particularly advanced or luxurious compared to offerings from Cadillac or Lincoln. It seemed more focused on size than on delivering a truly premium experience. The New Yorker became a symbol of American automotive excess, embodying the worst aspects of the pre-oil crisis era. It was large, inefficient, expensive, and out of touch with the more practical needs of consumers who were beginning to favor more compact, economical cars. By the 1970s, the shift toward efficiency and practicality was becoming more apparent. But the New Yorker was a holdover from a different time when size and power were more important than economy and reliability. Its timing couldn't have been worse, as the car seemed completely out of place in the context of the fuel crisis. The 1970 Chrysler New Yorker was a prime example of a car that was too large, too inefficient, and too unreliable for the changing automotive landscape of the 1970s. Its poor handling, abysmal fuel economy, and frequent mechanical problems made it impractical for everyday use, and it failed to offer the luxury experience expected from such an expensive vehicle. As a result, it became a symbol of automotive excess during a time when consumers were increasingly looking for efficiency and reliability. Number 5. The 1972 Dodge Demon had several shortcomings that contributed to its lackluster reputation and eventual obscurity. Despite being part of Dodge's muscle car lineup and carrying an aggressive name, the Demon didn't deliver the kind of performance that muscle car enthusiasts expected. The base model came with a 198 cubic inch slant 6 engine that was significantly underpowered compared to other muscle cars of the era. While a V8 engine was available, the 340 cubic inch V8, it still didn't compare to the raw power offered by other muscle cars, such as the Dodge Charger or Plymouth Barracuda. This made it feel like a muscle car light, failing to live up to its name. The Demon's handling was not impressive. Built on the Dodge Dart platform, it shared many of the Dart's shortcomings when it came to handling and ride quality. The car felt unrefined, with a suspension system that didn't inspire confidence, especially during aggressive driving. While some versions of the Demon were marketed as performance-oriented, they didn't come with significant upgrades in handling or driving dynamics. This left the car feeling more like a standard compact with a powerful engine rather than a true sports machine. The name Demon sparked controversy among religious and conservative groups who found it offensive. This negative publicity hurt its sales, as Dodge received complaints and protests over the car's devilish branding. To appease the critics, Dodge eventually had to rebrand the car, and by 1973, it was renamed the Dodge Dart Sport. This name change reflected the public relations nightmare surrounding the original branding, which further hurt the car's image. The 1972 Dodge Demon was overshadowed by more iconic and better-performing muscle cars from the same era, such as the Dodge Charger, Plymouth Roadrunner, and Ford Mustang. These cars offered more power, better handling, and stronger brand identities, leaving the Demon in the dust. The Demon only lasted for 2 years, from 1971 to 1972, before being rebranded. Its short production run contributed to its lack of recognition and lasting impact, fading into relative obscurity among more famous muscle cars. The Demon was released during a time when muscle cars were starting to decline in popularity due to stricter emission regulations, higher insurance costs, and the impending oil crisis. The demand for powerful gas-guzzling cars was waning, and the Demon couldn't carve out a strong enough niche for itself in a shrinking market. The Demon was essentially a compact car with muscle car aspirations, but it didn't commit fully to either identity. It was based on the Dodge Dart, which was more of an economy car platform, and its styling and performance didn't quite match up with the muscle car image Dodge tried to project. The 1972 Dodge Demon struggled to live up to its name and the expectations of muscle car fans. Underpowered performance, unremarkable handling, and a controversial name tarnished its reputation. Coupled with being overshadowed by more iconic muscle cars and the decline in muscle car popularity, the Demon ultimately faded into obscurity. Its identity crisis as part compact, part muscle car made it hard to find a dedicated audience, and it never truly made a lasting impression in the automotive world. Number 4. The 1974 Pontiac GTO marked a disappointing chapter in the history of what was once an iconic muscle car. The 1974 GTO came with a 350 cubic inch V8 engine, which only produced 200 horsepower. While this may sound decent by today's standards, it was a far cry from the powerful 400 and 455 cubic inch engines that had made earlier GTOs legends of the muscle car era. The reduced power output was due to stricter emissions regulations and the need to comply with fuel efficiency standards. Muscle cars were known for their thrilling acceleration, but the 1974 GTO struggled in this department. It didn't offer the kind of performance that enthusiasts had come to expect from a car wearing the GTO badge, making it feel sluggish compared to earlier models. By the mid-1970s, the entire muscle car industry was in decline. Due to increasing emission standards, safety regulations, and the oil crisis, manufacturers were forced to reduce engine power and performance. The 1974 GTO fell victim to these regulations, losing much of the raw power and rebellious spirit that had defined its earlier versions. New emissions control systems, such as catalytic converters and lower compression ratios, were introduced, further sapping the GTO's power and performance. This hurt the car's appeal to muscle car fans who were used to high-performance machines. The 1974 GTO was no longer built on the larger, more imposing platforms of previous models. Instead, it was based on the compact Pontiac Ventura, which shared its architecture with the Chevrolet Nova. This platform change resulted in a smaller, less aggressive-looking car, further diminishing its muscle car identity. The compact Ventura platform didn't lend itself well to the muscle car aesthetic. The 1974 GTO looked more like an economy car with some sporty features tacked on, rather than the bold, aggressive machine that muscle car enthusiasts loved. The design of the 1974 GTO was uninspiring. While it retained some sporty elements like hood scoops and stripes, it lacked the menacing presence of its predecessors. The front-end design, in particular, was far less aggressive than the iconic split grille of earlier GTOs. To many, the 1974 GTO felt like little more than a rebadged Venturi with a few cosmetic upgrades. This watered-down approach disappointed GTO fans, as it seemed like Pontiac was trying to capitalize on the GTO name without delivering a truly worthy product. By 1974, the GTO had lost its place in the muscle car hierarchy. It was no longer a raw, high-performance vehicle that could dominate the streets. Instead, it became a more sedate, watered-down version of its former self, appealing to a broader but less enthusiastic audience. At the time, other GM models like the Chevrolet Camaro and Pontiac Firebird Trans Am were still offering better performance and styling, which further overshadowed the 1974 GTO. This made it less desirable to performance enthusiasts, who could find more exciting options elsewhere. The 1974 GTO was the final model in the GTO's first production run, and it didn't go out with a bang. Instead, it faded away, tarnishing the legacy of what was once considered the car that started the muscle car revolution. The lack of power, compromised design, and shrinking market for muscle cars sealed its fate. The 1974 Pontiac GTO was a far cry from its predecessors. Underpowered and built on a compact platform, it lacked the excitement, power, and bold styling that had made the GTO a legend in the 1960s. With muscle cars on the decline and stricter regulations in place, the 1974 GTO felt like a watered-down version of its former self, ultimately marking the end of the GTO's first chapter in a disappointing way. Number 3, the 1976 AMC Gremlin X, despite being marketed as a sporty version of the Gremlin, had numerous issues that made it an underwhelming car. The Gremlin's signature styling was strange and polarizing. It featured a truncated rear end, giving the car an odd, almost unfinished look. The short wheelbase and tall body contributed to its awkward proportions, making it look more like a hatchback gone wrong than a sporty car. The design wasn't just awkward, it was also impractical. The boxy shape and stubby rear hurt the car's aerodynamics, affecting its efficiency and performance. Despite the X package being marketed as a sportier variant, the Gremlin X didn't deliver in the performance department. It came with engine options like the 3.8-liter inline-6 or the 5.0-liter V8. But even the V8 was underpowered for its size. The performance didn't live up to the expectations set by its sporty image. Even with the V8, the Gremlin X was slow by muscle car standards, with poor acceleration and lackluster power delivery. It couldn't compete with other compact cars of the era, let alone actual performance cars. AMC cars, including the Gremlin X, were known for having below-average build quality. The materials used for the interior and exterior felt cheap, and many owners reported issues with parts breaking or wearing out prematurely. Like many cars of the 1970s, the Gremlin X was prone to rust. Its build quality issues extended to its bodywork, leading to premature rusting, especially in humid climates or areas that use road salt. The Gremlin X package mostly added superficial features like racing stripes, fancy badging, sportier wheels, and bucket seats. But these additions did little to improve the car's actual performance. The sporty look was more about style than substance, and drivers didn't feel much of a difference in terms of driving experience. The Gremlin X wasn't known for good handling either. It had a short wheelbase and high center of gravity, which made it feel unstable and less fun to drive, especially when compared to more balanced compact cars of the era. The Gremlin X appealed to a narrow segment of the market that was looking for something small, quirky, and affordable. However, its strange design, combined with poor performance, limited its overall appeal. It couldn't attract performance enthusiasts or buyers looking for a practical, well-built compact car. By the mid-1970s, other manufacturers were producing better-performing compact cars with more reliability and style. The Gremlin X didn't stand out against competitors like the Ford Pinto, Chevrolet Vega, or even AMC's own Pacer, which, while equally strange in design, had more interior space and modern features. Even though the Gremlin was a small car, the optional V8 engine, available in the Gremlin X, was a gas guzzler. In an era where fuel efficiency was becoming increasingly important due to the oil crisis, this hurt its market appeal. The 1976 AMC Gremlin X may have offered a flashy, sporty package, but it was still an awkwardly designed, underpowered car with poor build quality and disappointing performance. Its cosmetic upgrades didn't make up for its lack of substance, and it was outclassed by other compact cars of the time. Despite its quirky charm, the Gremlin X failed to deliver as a sporty or practical vehicle, leaving it with a tarnished reputation. Number 2. The 1975 Chevrolet Cosworth Vega was intended to be a high-performance version of the Chevrolet Vega, but it fell short of expectations for several key reasons. The Cosworth Vega was significantly more expensive than the base Vega, costing around $5,900 at launch, which was about $900 more than a new Corvette of the time. This price disparity was hard to justify, especially when the performance didn't match its cost. Buyers expected more for their money, especially in terms of power and features. The Cosworth Vega was marketed as a performance car, but its price made it difficult to compete with faster and more established muscle cars like the Chevrolet Camaro or Ford Mustang. The Cosworth Vega came with a 2.0-liter, 16-valve, dual overhead cam engine developed with Cosworth engineering. While this engine sounded impressive on paper, it only produced 110 horsepower. In comparison to other performance cars of the time, this output was underwhelming, especially considering its premium price. The Cosworth Vega's 0 to 60 miles per hour time was sluggish, often taking over 10 seconds. This was far from what buyers expected from a car marketed as a sporty, performance-oriented vehicle. Even many economy cars of the time had similar or better acceleration times, which disappointed enthusiasts looking for a performance boost. The standard Vega had developed a poor reputation for engine and rust problems, which tarnished the Cosworth's image before it even hit the market. Buyers were skeptical of the car's reliability, especially when it came to engine durability and build quality. While the Cosworth engine was more advanced than the standard Vegas, it wasn't without its own problems. Owners reported issues with the engine's performance, especially under real-world driving conditions. The engine also required premium fuel, which further reduced its appeal during an era when fuel costs were a growing concern. Released in the mid-1970s, the Cosworth Vega arrived at a time when the oil crisis had shifted consumer priorities toward fuel-efficient cars. While the Cosworth's fuel economy wasn't terrible, its requirement for premium fuel, combined with its underwhelming performance, made it seem out of step with the times. The car was also hampered by stricter emissions regulations. The original plans for the Cosworth engine were far more ambitious, but by the time it hit production, emissions controls had neutered much of its performance potential. Visually, the Cosworth Vega didn't stand out much from the standard Vega, While it featured a few distinctive elements like gold stripes, special wheels, and black paint, it lacked the aggressive styling cues that many performance cars of the time used to signal their capabilities. Buyers expected something flashier for the price they were paying. The Cosworth Vega was meant to appeal to a niche market of performance enthusiasts, but its combination of high price, low power, and Vega's tarnished reputation made it a hard sell. Only about 3,508 units were produced, far below what Chevrolet had hoped for. Unlike other performance cars of the era, the Cosworth Vega didn't develop much of an aftermarket following. Its engine was complicated, and few owners wanted to invest in modifying a car that was already expensive to maintain. The Cosworth Vega inherited the same rust issues as the base Vega. Many owners experienced severe rust problems, particularly in the car's body panels, which diminished its long-term appeal and value. This issue further damaged the car's reputation and resale value. The 1975 Chevrolet Cosworth Vega was a car with good intentions but poor execution. While it boasted a technically advanced engine, it was underpowered, overpriced, and saddled with the poor reputation of the Vega. Its high price, lackluster performance, and reliability concerns made it a tough sell in a competitive market. Instead of delivering on its promise as a high-performance, compact car, the Cosworth Vega became another failed attempt in Chevrolet's lineup during a challenging automotive era. The 1974 Ford Maverick was intended to be a budget-friendly compact car, but it had several shortcomings that contributed to its poor reception. The Maverick's design was very basic and lacked any distinctive features that would make it stand out from other cars of its time. Its boxy shape and minimal styling meant it blended into the background rather than turning heads. Compared to more stylish competitors, the Maverick's plain look failed to capture the imagination of car buyers. It was designed to be functional rather than fashionable, which made it less appealing to those seeking a unique or eye-catching vehicle. As a budget compact, the Maverick was designed to keep costs low, which meant it came with very few luxury or comfort features. This lack of refinement made the driving experience less enjoyable compared to more upscale or well-equipped vehicles. The Maverick was criticized for its lack of refinement in build quality. The materials used in its interior and exterior were basic and often felt cheap, leading to issues with durability and overall quality. The Maverick came with a range of engines, but none were particularly powerful. The base engine options provided mediocre performance, making the car feel sluggish and uninspired to drive. Its handling and ride quality were also criticized for being lackluster. The Maverick's suspension and steering were not particularly advanced, leading to a driving experience that was neither engaging nor particularly comfortable. While the Maverick was aimed at budget-conscious buyers, its lack of standout features and unremarkable design made it less attractive compared to other budget cars on the market. It didn't offer any compelling reasons for buyers to choose it over other options. The Maverick's appeal was limited, and it didn't build a lasting reputation. It was overshadowed by more innovative or stylish vehicles that gained greater attention and popularity. The early 1970s saw the rise of many compact and subcompact cars that offered better design, performance, and features. The Maverick struggled to compete against these more appealing alternatives, which contributed to its fading into obscurity. Unlike some other budget compacts, the Maverick didn't have high-performance variants or special editions that could attract car enthusiasts. This limited its appeal among those looking for a sportier or more engaging driving experience. Like many cars from this era, the Maverick suffered from rust issues, particularly in areas prone to corrosion. This problem further diminished its long-term appeal and reliability. The 1974 Ford Maverick was a straightforward, budget-focused compact car that failed to make a significant impact due to its uninspired design, lack of refinement, and underwhelming performance. While it served its purpose as an affordable option, it didn't stand out in a competitive market and quickly became forgettable. Its basic nature and lack of distinguishing features meant it didn't capture the interest of buyers or car enthusiasts, contributing to its reputation as a lackluster vehicle.